percent overall from the field, but he was also 50% from threes. He's 5 of 10.
I know you're out there. It's okay. Stand back there.
No, more than likely, you're going to get that number one seed. And so I want Houston to be ranked at number 1 and 8.
Welcome into another episode of Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian family. We're coming off the heels of number 6 Houston, coming away with a 66-60 victory over Xavier in the Big 12 Big East Challenge. Really a great test for the University of Houston Cougars men's basketball team. The first time all season, well, a couple of first times, as today we're joined by a special guest on the show. But a lot of firsts on this episode in this game that the Houston Cougars played, which was the first time that the Houston Cougars faced a deficit in the second half, the first time that they did not end up winning a game by double digits, and the first time that really they were challenged and they had to execute late down the stretch. Now, it wasn't necessarily perfect the entire game, but I think they did well in stretches. But before we get into it, as always, we have to say thank you to those of you guys that are tuning in. And Daman, welcome in. So I said over to you. How are you doing, sir?
And I'm doing well. It's little one's birthday, and so celebrating his birthday. But it was a great game. I've been waiting for Houston to be in a close competitive game. So far, that was their first one this year. And a lot of telltale signs of who they'll go-to players. And Coach Sampson said he wanted to see how players react on the road. I did as well. Got a chance to see it.
First and foremost, little one, what's his name? We gotta wish him a happy birthday.
It's Daman Jr. We call him Deuce.
Deuce. Well, happy birthday, Deuce. And hopefully he has a great one. And how old is he going to be turning?
He's turning 2.
2 years old. So big.
3,
2.
4,
Got a long way to go. Joining us now as well, Kris, Gardner of the Houston Rombar Review. Kris, how you doing, sir?
I'm all right, guys. Can you hear me okay? I connected wrong, so I'm wondering if I fixed my error.
We are good.
All
I can
right.
hear you. Great.
That was a gritty win. It was good. Good, tough road win. Made free throws down the stretch to get the dub. And hey, Cougs' first road test of the season, first true road game. Xavier is coming off a loss, so they really wanted to get the win. Cougs got it done.
Yeah, Wanda Poke on YouTube says her head hurts from screaming at the television in this game. But I think that's a great word to describe this game. Gritty, Kris. The Cougars went over 12 minutes in the second half without hitting a field goal. They came out, in the first half, it was kind of a little, really, it was a tale of similar stories in both halves. In the first half, Houston jumped out to an early lead. Xavier rallied and made it a game. Then similar story in the second half, Houston jumps out to an early 13-point lead. Xavier rallies and they do a good job of really making this game ugly and really holding Houston offensively. Now, a big part of that for the Cougars, specifically in the second half, had to do with Jamal Shedd's foul trouble. And overall, they just played really well defensively, but I think Houston did really well in specific stretches down the stretch, especially once Jamal Shedd came back in the game. I think the biggest, most important one was late free throw shooting. Houston went 10 for 10 from the free throw line in the final 6 minutes, 34 seconds of the game, which games like this is a big reason why they were able to come away with the victory.
Well, they missed one because Juwan missed one of them, but it's okay. They were 3 for 8 at one point. I remember that specifically. And they finished much better from the line. Our issue, Xavier Francis is not a good free throw shooter.
He missed in less 10 seconds.
Yeah. So other than that, Daman Dun is the guy. He started out 1 for 4 from the line, but he made his 2s, and Jamal made his free throws, and LJ and Emmanuel closed it out. So as long as those guys make free throws, I'm not really worried about the bigs. Juwan Roberts probably needs to shoot better than 57% from the line. But other than that, I'm not too worried about it as long as it's the right guys shooting free throws. Other than Daman Dun, these guys should be better than 60%.
Dan, what are your thoughts on this victory by the Houston Cougars?
Just down the stretch, just one thing I was watching as they was going on their drought, just like Houston normally does. It's hard for the other opposing teams to score as well. So Houston may have went on 3 or 4 minutes without scoring, but Xavier was going on the drought as well. And so as I'm watching the game, Jamal not on the floor. LJ, I don't want to say he's not a scorer in my opinion because he can score and he's shown that, but he's one of those players who he needs a pick and roll. He's not. He hasn't shown to me so far this year that he's a prolific isolation scorer. And in those drought moments, Coach Sampson drew up plays for Damian, in which I think Damian, so far from what I've seen, will be the most. He's the best scorer in regards because it's going to be oftentimes a lot where Houston is on a drought and they aren't scoring. And so I was watching that, and I think it's Jamal and Damian. I think Jamal is probably the best scorer along with Damian. LJ, he needs a screen or a certain action to really get his shot off, and he shoots a high volume of threes. And that's another thing I was watching there. And although he makes them at an efficient clip, but this team may struggle at times where they need someone who can score without a screen, just an isolation, and be able to score. But their defense was on point. They went against a team who I believe was the number one offensive rebounder. So it's really strength on strength. And so it was good to see Houston to pull out this win on a hostile environment, tough calls, touch fouls, and both teams have to adjust. I will say with the officiating, it was equal on both sides. Just be consistent, and that's consistent.
And that's where I want to say it. The officials called it tight both ways. They called those illegal screens on both teams' bigs at the point of attack. It's on the players to adjust. A lot of the fouls that the Coogs got were reach-in fouls. Jojo reaching in, holding. That's a foul. Malik Wilson, the 1 minute he was on the floor, reached in, and wasn't even necessarily Malik, reaching in late in the shot clock. Those are fouls. Refs call those. You want those calls on the other end. It was called tight on both ways, and that's what you want. You want to be fair, and that's what it was.
50 fouls called.
50 fouls. It wasn't
50
refs.
foul calls between the two teams.
The teams missed free throws for much of the game. That made it ugly too. When guys going to the line and clanging at the free throw line, that's part of it as well.
Yeah, that's a absurd number, 50 free throws in between the two teams. I did want to bring up this comment by Mr. Smith, and Kris, I'll go to you first. I'm curious to get your thoughts. He says he liked what he saw from Jojo Tugler tonight. Block late in the second half was nice, but then he goes on and he also says Xavier Francis, he's setting his stock in him. What are your thoughts on that? And Xavier Francis had a really big time block late down the stretch. I think it was at the 2:25-minute mark. So he came up with a big play down the stretch as well.
Agreed. Xavier only had one board in the first half. He got the message at halftime, or he did a self-check or whatever, and was much more active. He had 6 rebounds in the second half. He battled foul trouble. Jojo, he does a great job when he's in, but he picks up bad fouls. He picks up freshman fouls, right? And he has to stop doing that. Holding, grabbing, things like that. When he keeps himself in the ball game, he has a positive impact for the team. But when he doesn't, he's got to learn to not commit bad fouls.
Yeah, some of those was touch fouls too, which they are fouls. That's when I could just give credit, like Kris said, you give credit because they were consistent. But basketball is a physical sport, and oftentimes it was just simple touch fouls. And calling letter of the law, some of them was fouls, but I'm not selling my stock on Xavier. I like Kris just said, when he's on the floor, he's impacting the game, whether it's changing shots, blocking shots, he's doing things that impact winning. Going after, diving on the floor, getting rebounds. He might not get the rebound, but he gets the tip and doing different things. So I'm definitely not selling my stock on him. This is really his first year being able to play through mistakes. And so but like Jojo, same thing Kris said, when he's out there, he's doing good. It's just him staying out of foul trouble. That's been the knock on him. Foul trouble.
That's it.
All games so far.
He's averaging this is the 8th game for the team. He's got to be around averaging 3 fouls a game in like 10 minutes a game. That's too much. That's too many fouls to play so few minutes. He's a freshman. He's going to learn. He's learned from his mistakes. But once he does that and keeps himself on the floor, My. Bright future for him.
One of the players that we kind of touched on a few minutes ago, but haven't harped on too much. And we mentioned it in the previous show, and Coach Kelvin Sampson talked about the comfort level, or LJ Cryer himself talked about his comfort level here with that program. But that just seems to continue to keep building game by game. LJ Cryer, he hit some pivotal shots down the stretch, especially when Jamal Shead was off the bench. He ended up being the leading scorer for Houston once again in this game. He had 23 points, 5 of 12 from threes. But again, transfer from Baylor, and each game it just seems like his fit is continuing to grow and grow, and he's becoming a not most definitely a key contributor, but also a player that when Houston needs big points down the stretch, seems like he's been the guy in the last few games.
And it seems like Coach Sampson and staff realizes where he wants the ball, where he wants his screens, where he wants to get into the middle and shoot his floaters, because down the stretch, they started running sets. He's bringing the ball up and running sets for him to get inside and get into those spots. The way defense is defending him, he's such a good three-point shooter. They're pressing him and trying to pressure him to make him drive and either be a facilitator or a playmaker. And so down the stretch, I love his decision-making, his shot-making ability, and his really ability to close games. But just watching this game, there's going to be times where it's in a tournament, NCAA tournament against good teams, where you need somebody who can make a play without a screen, isolation, to make a play. Houston, from what I've seen so far this year, it's only a couple guys who can just do that. But I think LJ is one of those guys.
And Mr. Smith he's defending his own argument a little bit, but the 6.6 boards for JoJo, no points for Francis. JoJo had 3 offensive rebounds, and I think 2 or 3 of those were off air balls or misses, so he's right at the rim to get for putbacks. Xavier's offensive rebounds were digs and daggers that kick out to teammates on the perimeter. So it's a different kind of offensive rebound. JoJo has a brighter future. JoJo has a better offensive game right now. But Xavier missed his free throws, was 0 for 3. If he doesn't get dunks or putbacks, he's not going to score. He's not going to be a go-to weapon on the block for this team.
Because they don't really go to him. He's shown that he can do it.
You know,
he can guys left hand, right hand sky hooks, but they just don't go to him. And so what you said, that's 100% accurate.
And we could, I think all 3 of us and some of the fans and viewers would like to see the Cougs go to the low post more.
They did a lot in the second half with J1 consecutive time. I think maybe been with
I want to see it more than that. One, Xavier Francis sometimes, mix it up. Daman Dun sometimes, when your perimeter shots not falling, get there on the post up to guys. See what they can do. Now, yes, I know if they do get fouled, you got to make the free throws. That's part of it as well. But this team found a different way to win. Some fans were complaining, well, we're not playing anybody. Who we're playing? We're not playing. We're not being tested. Well, the Cougs got tested tonight and they won. Okay, now what are you going to say?
Yeah, the marks of a good team whenever they can find ways to win, especially those ugly games when not everything's going their way late. Now, when we're talking about this game, I'm seeing some of the comments. A lot of our viewers are pointing out that UH is not only the first team to get a win for the Big 12 in the Big 12 Big East column, but UH is the first Big 12 team in general to beat Xavier at all. So a couple of firsts there that, again, a lot of the UH fans and supporters are proud of. But in that, looking back at this game, the comment I did want to bring up was Daman Dun, who, again, we can't mention a little bit, still seems like he's in a slump and went 0 for 5 from the field today, had 3 points, 3 for 6 from the free throw line. Kris, you talked about his free throw shooting earlier, but just in general, kind of interesting. The first 2 games that he started, he seemed like he had his shot going. Now he hasn't been able to find it, but he has been able to make key stretches, especially when it comes to being on defense. So it's interesting to see how, again, he had it going offensively in the first couple games of the season. Houston went to him. Now that he's been struggling from the field. Houston's finding other guys to be able to step up. And when we go back to what we've mentioned for the first 8 games now, it's the depth. Again, that's a signal how Houston is not reliant on one person to be the go-to scorer on any given night. Now, in a perfect world, obviously the Houston Cougars would love for Daman Dun to not be 0 for 5 from the field.
And of his 5 misses, I want to say at least 3 of them rimmed in and out. Okay, so they just didn't go down. For the most part, he's taking good shots. They're just not falling right now. Malik Wilson, Ramon Walker, one of those 2 guys probably won't play game in, game out on a consistent basis. So we're probably looking at a 9-man rotation. Malik came in because of foul trouble to Jamal, and what did Malik do? Passed up a jumper, picked up a foul. Coach said, no, enough for you, and pulled him out. Right now, Coach Sampson doesn't trust Malik to play through a mistake. He doesn't trust him. He'll probably go back to him maybe against Rice or Jackson State or whatever. He might go back to him and trust him. But as of right now, the last couple of games, he gets a minute, 2 minutes, doesn't do what Coach wants him to do, he takes him out.
Yeah, with Damian, like when he said, it's really just a slump. And Kris, you described it well as well. Thank you, son. He's getting good shots. They just aren't falling, and in the spots that he wants the ball. But even within that, his Achilles heels, he got to make his free throws because he does an outstanding job, especially in good moments where Houston is struggling to score, to get to the free throw line. And I think that's part of the reason Coach Sampson will go to him in those moments, because I think he's the all-around best scorer, especially with creating for himself. And so I don't really worry about him. Well, we've seen stretches where Marcus start the season last year, didn't score. Well, he scored, but he was kind of in a slump in regards to the normal Marcus that we've seen. We've seen it from different players throughout Houston. And so that's just basketball. It's a make or miss game. He makes some of those shots, 2 or 3 of those shots. It's a different outlook on him. But there was a starting lineup adjustment with Emmanuel inserted back into the starting lineup. And so I wonder what Coach Sampson is saying about that. I think with that, it gives Jamal and LJ more room because of the teams, how they're going to guard Emmanuel. And so, and then I think with that second unit, it was probably wanting to see, is Damian, will he pick up like he played the first 2 games in regards to, so I think it's a little bit of that. And it's still early in the season. Coach Sampson's just still figuring out what's best for this team early in this year.
Real quickly, let's put a pin on it. I'd like to thank each and every single one of you guys that's watching, whether it be on the Houston Round Ball Review YouTube channel, on the Pod Slam Jam YouTube channel, or if you're watching us live on our X account on Pod Slam Jam, or maybe if you're listening to the audio only platforms later on. We appreciate you for taking the time to make Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian family a part of your day. And we also like to say thank you to today's secondary sponsor, which is Star Pizza. With 3 locations across the Houston area, Star Pizza is your go-to stop before or after the game. Be sure to stop by any of the locations every Tuesday during lunchtime for an all-you-can-eat pizza buffet at all 3 of their Houston area locations. On that note, I do want to kind of build and expand on not only Emmanuel Sharp, who you brought up, who's inserted to the starting lineup, Dayon, but also Juwan Roberts. Those 2 players, again, night in and night out. We're talking about consistency. They seem to be Mr. Reliable, both of them, when it comes to what they're going to produce and specifically what their stat lines look like game in and game out. Juwan Roberts had 9 points. He led the team with 12 rebounds, and Emmanuel Sharp 10 points, and he had 4 assists himself.
The 4 assists is a good sign for Emmanuel Sharp. His shots didn't make him like 1 for 6 from 3, 1 for 6 from 2, but he got 4 assists. So that's adding to his game, because if he can add to his game, because some of those are off dribble drives and kickouts, that's another thing for opponents to prepare for him. So that'll just make the team's offense more effective, because it'll add another layer to the offense, and not just, well, all Sharp's going to do is stand behind 3-point line and shoot threes. Nope. It's going to dribble drive, kick it out to teammates. That's good to see.
Yeah, that's something I've mentioned throughout the first couple of games, his development and attacking those closeouts, and he did a good job of that. And I think a couple of things that he can learn from Damian is creating fouls and getting to the free throw line, because he's such a good free throw shooter. And so I'm wondering if he's taking bits and pieces of Damian's game, using his pump fake, drawing contact to be able to create. But like Kris just said, that's added bonus when he's creating plays and making good passes and getting those assists. But he has been consistent. His shot wasn't consistent, but he found other ways to score and impact the game. And so I love what I've seen from him. But J1, a couple more. I really love one of the timeouts, how Coach Miller described how to guard certain players. That was probably one of the most honest. And that's what I see when I watch why teams don't guard certain Houston players like he described. And so for him to say that and his team to be able to kind of execute what he described in one of the timeouts that I saw, it was kind of good to see. But J1, I want to see him shoot that mid-range jumper. We still haven't seen it.
Yes, I thought about that exact same thing, D.
Yeah, man.
Second half.
Shoot it because they giving him the space. Let it go. And so I want to be able to at least see him shoot the mid-range because he can do it, but I don't. He hasn't done it yet. I want to see him at least do that because that can make him even harder to guard because he's so physical and he know how to get to his left hand. And now if he face up and show you that he can make that mid-range, now you got to get him. Now he can jab and use his offensive moves even more. And so I want to see him shoot that, at least shoot the mid-range. Start shooting the mid-range a little more or shoot it.
The funny thing is all three of us had the same thought because literally as Dejan was talking, that same thought popped into my head. But this is an interesting comment from Mr. Smith. How many technicals will Kelvin Sampson get this year? Says a tongue-in-cheek, he's not going to put up getting holes on the road this year. Kelvin Sampson picked up the second technical foul of the season in that second half. Clearly was frustrated.
He was frustrated, but I'm going to say this to the fans. Big 12 basketball is physical. Refs call it tight a lot of times. So y'all thought tonight's game was poorly officiated. You wait till Big 12 conference play starts. And you see tweet after tweet after tweet after tweet. Oh my gosh, let us play.
Yeah.
Come on. And it's a road game too.
Yeah.
But in the end,
that too.
27 fouls on Houston, 23 on Xavier.
I like Kris. I didn't think that it was bad officiating. Just a lot of fouls being called, but it's consistent on both ends. And as a basketball player, as a coach, that's what you want. Even as a fan watching the game, just call it consistent on both ends. I don't think it was poorly officiated. I think the players, I think that tech, like they described during the game, was part of Coach Sampson keeping that energy for his team and fighting because it was a bad call, in my opinion, on Jamal when he got that tech anyway.
I had a problem with that call, yes.
Yeah. And so they first aren't going to be 100% right, but overall, I mean, just be consistent with what they call. Thank you, son. And so I don't know how many Coach Sam. I think he might get what's the over or under what you guys say on 10?
On text?
I'll say under.
Yeah, most definitely. I would
about 7, 8.
I'll go 5 or 6.
5 would be 5.5 would probably be one. I would put, and I would still some of these Big 12 games are going to be battles. They're going to get in the moments. I'd still take the under, but I could see him getting over 5 this season. But we shall see. When we're talking about Xavier, it was very good. Kind of a preview of what a lot of those Big 12 games are going to be about. Packed house in Cincinnati on the campus, and they were looking forward to this game against Houston. Again, that kind of goes to show where Xavier, when was the last time? I was reading the notes that Conrad sends before the game, but this is the first time that these two programs had met since the 70s, I believe.
That sounds about right,
yep. Which, again, that's 50 years from now. But the crowd was ready for a top 10 team coming into the country, and that just goes to show the brand that the Houston Cougars are. That opposing teams, they circle the games when the Cougars come into town, they get hyped for it, but they're gonna have to see that every road game this year. And then once it gets into Big 12 conference play, there's going to be that intensity each and every single night, which is good to see. Again, like we mentioned, that the Houston Cougars were able to find a way to win when not everything went their way and when it wasn't necessarily the most easiest game to play when it came to trying to find in rhythm, like we just mentioned, when it came to all the foul calls.
And I think I heard the announcers right, if I remember correctly, with this road win, this is the Cougs' 12th straight road win.
Correct.
That's impressive, man. That is impressive. It's just another example of what Coach Sampson, the staff, and the players have built and established through these years. Commended, and sure, it'll end, but 12 straight road wins is an impressive feat. 100 wins over the last 3 seasons is also impressive. This is a golden era for Coug basketball, Coug fans, and we got fans complaining about the officiating in the team's 8-0. I hope that's the case throughout the season. Refs suck. The Cougs win. Yep. Well, who cares? So yeah. Has Conrad sent out any video post game, Andy?
He sent an audio, which is what I'm looking
Okay.
at. I'm actually surprised they had a. Well, he's not surprised, but they did have a lengthy. I'm working on it now. But one of the trends that I was gonna go to that you don't see often when it comes to Houston, they were out rebounded. They were out rebounded, but a pretty good margin in that first half. Xavier had a 25-17 advantage over the Cougars on the board, and specifically when it came to offensive rebounds, Xavier had 11 of them in that first half. That's again a bit of an interesting trend where we don't necessarily see that all that often. We saw an adjustment made in the second half where Houston was able to pick up the slack for lack of a better phrase, and they ended up still losing the rebounding margin, but it was only by 3 as to compare to the 8 advantage that Xavier had at halftime.
It was the first half was unique because of the boards. Xavier dominated, but they only scored 4 second chance points off those 11 offensive rebounds. And it was 11 or 13 zip in fast break points. That is something you do not see from a Houston Cougar Kelvin Sampson coach team. But they made adjustments. They reduced the deficit for the board for the game and made free throw down the stretch and got the hard fought win.
And Xavier was the number one rebounding team, offensive rebounding team coming into the game. So it's really strength on strength.
Yeah.
And no surprise there. But like Kris just said, they only had 4 second chance points. So Houston was doing a good job of, if they did give up an offensive rebound, defending on the offensive rebound, which I'm sure that's so Coach Sampson put into focus, because that team is going to get offensive rebounds. They're good at that. And so I'm surprised with some of the numbers, but every game tells its own story. I really like the way Jamal came in, especially after the foul trouble, and helped close out that game. I think he was tremendous, especially in the second half down the stretch. And I think this year's team will need him to probably be a lot aggressive in regards to looking for his shot. That's from what I've seen.
Yeah, he had that key floater late in the stretch that gave Houston a 7-point advantage, and kind of gave them the breathing room they needed. I know Xavier was able to cut it down to 4 a couple times after that, but it created enough separation where it never really didn't sweat too much down the stretch in the final 3 minutes of the game.
As long as the Cougs made free throws, I wasn't worried about getting a win. I had a buddy of mine, I guess, late first half, texted me, said, yeah, Cougs gonna lose this game. They're fouling too much. They found a way to win. That's all that matters. They found a way to win. You're 8-0, a good road win over a team in the Big East. And this was, because I'm not sure how many games have been played so far, the first Big 12 win in the Big East Big 12 battle.
Yep.
Will be the last one for a while, apparently, unfortunately. But, and the rationale on that is kind of interesting why the Big 12 doesn't want to do it anymore. But
what's the rationale?
They don't want to play the bottom teams in the Big East and give them Q1, Q2 wins. Basically, what's in it for the Big 12 teams?
Wow.
All the teams in the Big 12, Q1, Q2, they're playing some Big East teams, Q3 or whatever, is better for them. So what's benefit for the Big 12?
Well, DePaul and Iowa State playing, and DePaul was leading last time I checked. I think Iowa State's come back to rally, but that's interesting that's the rationale behind it. But Rusty Reed says that was the first Xavier loss to a Big 12 team since at least 2000. Big Jack 512 expands on your comment, Kris. He says Golden Era, all that's missing now is a national championship. But one thing I do want to bring up, we're gonna listen to the audio in a bit, but commenters, they want to know about Terrence Arts, and I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts. Or Kris, I'll go to you first. Your thoughts on really, he had 13 minutes and had foul troubles in himself too, but seems like a lot of fans want to see or are curious to see how Terrence Arsenal would have done this season, and well, hasn't necessarily been as consistent as some would like.
He wasn't. His defense was solid. He didn't rebound though in that first half when he was a 4-man down the stretch. He didn't hit the boards. That was another factor in Xavier's rebounding edge in that first half. But the help side block was good. Again, he had a reach-in foul, things like that.
He had a strong take and finish too.
Yeah, that in the first half. So that was good. He's got to be consistent. He's had games where he's rebounded very well. And tonight, he didn't. So got to be consistent. Young players got to be consistently good, and that's one thing these guys still working on.
0 rebounds. That's going to be something that gets emphasized to him.
Oh, yes.
In the practices leading up to their next game on Wednesday against Rice. On that note, let's hear a quick clip from the post game against Xavier. And if I heard this correct, we're going to be able to hear Ultra Crier, potentially Kelvin Sampson. It's only a snippet of the post game, so let's see what they had to say.
Raise your hand.
Kris, what do you got?
Sure. Kelvin, your ability to navigate through that game with the foul trouble and the crowd and everything else that's going on, what went into that?
Well, when you got a bunch of new guys, Jojo, number 20, what's Jojo's number 25? He was playing high school last year. Almost every one of the fouls they called on him, those were fouls. We've got to do a better job helping him. Jojo by nature is a fouler. Some kids have certain things they're really good at. Well, that's what he's really good at. He's really good at fouling. Some days better than others. Tonight was one of his better days. He was great tonight at that. Now some of the other ones, some of it is a byproduct of playing on the road. It's the way it is. There's no other way around it. We had 5 straight possessions there where we had, I think, 4 fouls, and Jamal picked his 4th up, Xavier picked his 4th up, J1. Did you pick up your 4th down there during that time? How many did you have in that? 3?
Mm-hmm.
Well, but when he was a freshman, he was a lot like that. He fouled a lot too. But, it's your first road game. It's a tough environment. I didn't think we played very good. But I don't like it when coaches talk about how poorly they play without giving the other team some credit. Xavier, they played hard. They popped us in the mouth on the boards in the first half. We were much better in the second half. But the first half, I thought they were the aggressor. And that's not something that usually happens with us, but we've got some guys still trying to search for an identity for themselves. I can't establish your identity for you. Here's what our program's identity is, but what is yours? How does yours relate to our programs? And we're still fighting through that. But today's December 1st. Our team's going to get a lot better, and I'm sure that Sean's will too. This is December 1st basketball. Around middle of January, 1st of February, both these teams will be a lot better. But best thing about tonight was we found a way to win.
Following that up, Kelvin,
Found a way to win. We had to hear a lot of Kelvinisms in that clip. December 1 basketball, but I think he agreed with the officiating. There were fouls. There were being called. Houston has to learn from that, being able to adjust and not commit those fouls. And when he was talking about Jojo Tugler, he says one thing he's good at right now is being able to commit those fouls. But interesting comments from head coach Kelvin Sampson. What stood out to you, Kris?
His honesty, his candor, and and as usual, he likes to give some credit to the opponent.
Yeah,
Xavier played played hard. They played tough. And they did figuratively punch the Cougs in the mouth on the glass in that first half. The Cougs made adjustments second half and did a better job and reduced that margin. Going back to it, Xavier Francis, 1 rebound in the first half. Terrence Arsenault, none. Xavier did a better job in the second half. So did Juwan Roberts, second half. They did a better job. I got to disagree with my man, H-Town, Big Dobbs here. Front court weakness exposed. They got in foul trouble. Jojo got in foul trouble. Xavier got in foul trouble. Jamal got in foul trouble. That's backcourt. That's not a weakness. Jojo's inexperienced. He won't get the experience unless he plays. That is what he's doing playing. He's got to learn not to foul. He's got to learn not to hold, not to grab, not to push when guards try to dribble past him. Use his length to block the shot instead of reaching in. Too many fouls by the Cougs are reach-in fouls. The coaches don't teach that. The players have to cut that out. Stop reaching in on fouls.
Real quickly.
Salute to the
No, I
volleyball team
couldn't.
for winning. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up. The volleyball team beat UC Santa Barbara 3-1, so they advanced the second round in the NCAA tournament. Two programs now. Back the first time that they've had back-to-back appearances in the NCAA tournament. So kudos to Coach David Rare, and then shout out to Kelvin Sampson, gave him earlier in the week to tie it in. But any final stretches, the next game, or any final comments on this game against Xavier? The next time the Houston Cougars will take the court will be on Wednesday. Like I said, it'll be a home game at the Fertitta Center against a crosstown opponent in the Rice Owls. Kris, what can we expect from the Rice Owls, and anything else that you'd like to touch on when it comes to this game against Xavier?
Rice ended a losing streak last night with a win over UT Martin. They played defense for a change, apparently, in the win of UT Martin last night, which is not a strength of Coach Scott Parrott teams. They play HCU tomorrow, Saturday. Should be another win for Rice over HCU. So the Owls be coming into Fertitta on should be a 2-game winning streak. Cougs are the better team, but it's city rival, friends playing against friends. Kind of interesting to see how the Cougs handle Owls big man Max Fiedler. Great passing big man. Travis Evie, 3-point scorer, set the school record for Rice with made like 3 threes last night. He's now like 250 in his Rice career, and he's a transfer to Rice. So, but the Owls are not great individual defenders. So the Cougs should be able to get points, get good looks, knock them down, play defense. Should be a win.
And that's pretty much going to do it for today's episode of Let's Rage Cougs. Again, we'd like to thank each and every single one of you guys that took the opportunity to make Let's Rage Cougs, presented by the Saxenian family, a part of your day, whether it is live, whatever platform you're watching us, or you're listening us audio only on another day. And of course, we also like to say thank you to our secondary sponsor, which is Star Pizza, with 3 locations across the Houston area. Star Pizza is your go-to stop before or after the game. Be sure to stop by any of their locations every Tuesday during lunch for an all-you-can-eat pizza buffet. Once again, the Houston Cougars are the 6th-ranked Houston Cougars come away with a victory. A lot of first up in Cincinnati against Xavier. It was the first time that the Houston Cougars faced a deficit in the second half, but they were able to find a way to win. LJ Cryer led the way with 23 points, 8 of 16 from the field, 5 of 12 on his threes. Jamal Shed battled with foul trouble, but he still finished with 13 points. He had 4 assists, 3 rebounds. Juwan Roberts, 1 point shy of a double-double, 9 points, 12 rebounds. Emmanuel Sharp had 10 points and 4 assists. Again, Houston takes the court once again from the Fertitta Center on December 6th, 7 p.m. tip-off against the Rice Owls. Kris,
Andy,
I'll toss it over to you.
Real quick, Andy. Fans want to know, Coug fans want to know, if there is a coaching announcement this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, will there be an emergency Let's Rage Cougs to discuss the hire?
I mean, let's do it. I don't see why not. That seems like emergency noteworthy news, most definitely, especially if it does get done this weekend. And regardless of who it is, they're going to be tasked with a very, very big job. And honestly, If it's the right hire, hopefully leading the Houston Cougars to it will be a success in a power conference. That's what they're going to be tasked with, trying to lead the program into success in a power conference. So, yeah, I think that warrants for an emergency episode of Let's Rage Coogs.
All right, excellent. So Tony M, T.I., Bobby Roy, Joe Mendez, Big Jack, H-Town, everybody for watching. Tune in, subscribe to our channels, Possum Majama and Houston Roundbar Review. Click on the bell for each channel so you can receive notifications when we have, if and when we do have, an emergency edition of Let's Rage Cougs to discuss the new hire announcement or news. And you got to weigh your leaning one way or the other, who you think is going to be.
Oh, well, if I had to point in a direction, all signs seem to be pointing to that coach that's a little far east and that green, specifically because Ryan of GoCoogs.com had a great article where he did basically the logical argument about it. And if it would have been someone else, you would expect them to make that announcement as soon as possible, because the transfer portal window opens up next week, and you want to get that new coach and hiring their guys, being able to try to recruit as many people, as many players as possible. So interesting. We shall see what the noise comes out after the American Athletic Conference Championship game. Obviously, the Tulane Green Wave are going to be competing in that, and sustained success. That's what the Houston Cougars are elusively chasing in football. And if they feel that that's the right guy, they need to go get him. And if you wrote my column for GoCoogs.com, I personally feel like he's the right guy for the program. So I would be thrilled if he indeed is the hire, but we shall see. Things will play out, and let's see how quickly things pick up after the American Athletic Conference Championship game.
Well put. I think it's going to be Coach Fritz. I think I'm okay with either Coach Fritz or Coach Traylor. Those are my top two choices. We'll see how it all plays out. And whenever it's announced and soon thereafter, we'll do another Let's Rage Cougs. Thank you, everybody, as always. Follow me, Houston Roundbar Review, on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Spoutable, all those good things. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedules to watch Let's Rage Cougs, to comment on the show. Hit the like button, as Tony M commented. Spread the word about Let's Rage Cougs. Spread the word about Possum Majama. Spread the word about the Houston Roundbar Review. Let's Rage Cougs is the original post-game show for Houston basketball and football. Thank you very much, everybody. Oh, and always remember, Houston Roundbar Review, since 1994, local name, global perspective.
Got to take over for Dayon. I had to step out, but as always, go Cougs, as my backdrop kind of gets rid of it a little bit. But as always, thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.